lifestyle. So I'm going to open it up to the panel. From your personal perspectives, what would you say to the audience? What can everyone do here? What are the simple things that we can do to eat eco, to plant more, to choose organic? So maybe we'll start at the end here and work our way down and give us a few inspirational words as to what the audience can take home with them today.
It's a hard question, especially when I have no idea who you all are. So I'll just ask a couple questions to you, and you can just, show of hand. How many of you are concerned about just your food tasting good? I'd expect everybody's hand, even if you like McDonald's, probably because you think it tastes good, right? And that could change if you get off it for a few days or years. Eventually you might change your mind. How many of you are concerned about your health? Right, that's usually the biggest concern for those of us who are trying to change our food habit. Joanna and I have little ones growing inside us, and we don't have the luxury, or we should, at least if we know better, we should be super careful about what we put in our system. There are so much toxic stuff around us, and babies, and certainly babies inside us, are incredibly susceptible to these chemicals. It disrupts our endocrine system, our hormonal systems, brain function, etc. So health is a huge issue, and often the reason why people start considering eating differently. How many of you are also considering concerned about food safety, food security? Wow, this is a very educated crowd. Most people have no idea what even food security is about. I mean, you go into a supermarket and the shelves are full. Why should you be concerned about not having enough food? It seems like we have an oversupply of food. The truth is that we don't, and we're actually very vulnerable to food crisis, hunger crisis. It's happening more in other countries. We maybe remember a few years ago when folks in Egypt were going in the street because of the price of bread going up. In the U.S., the percentage of our budget that we spend on food is still quite small, and so even though there's been a rise in our food cost, it doesn't impact us as strongly. But it doesn't mean that we're not vulnerable. So there is a lot of reason, a lot of concern. I'm just mentioning a few of them. There are so many more. Global warming is obviously a big one. Economic vitality in our communities, etc. I think that in terms of what we can do, my advice usually is that we got to start where we are individually. I think that one of the big mistakes that we make is that we feel that it's an all or nothing, and that becomes so discouraging that it usually means nothing, right? Because it can be so overwhelming when we start thinking about all of the issues that we're faced with. And it's really not an all or nothing. One of the lines in the documentary that is very inspiring to me is by a woman named Diana Endicott, and she started a farmers co-op in the Kansas City area. And she mentions, and I had a lot of the people that I interviewed talk about the same issue. She mentions that if we could just spend $10 of our food budget, $10 of our food budget on locally and sustainably grown produce, that we would dramatically change our food system. So like something as little as $10 per person could revolutionize the reality of how food is grown and distributed, and how folks are feeling, and access, the ability for everyone to have access to this food. So actually small change can have very large difference, can make very large difference.
Do you think that's your message for today, is even
Sorry,
the smallest change?
No,
we want to hear from everyone. So do you
yes,
think the smallest change?
Take a small, one small step. Create your priority list. I'll tell you, go to freshthemovie.com. We have a shopping guide. And the whole shopping guide is kind of like walking you through different issues, supermarket shopping, farmers market, etc. But basically in each part